Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakdown Podcast YouTube channel. My name is Corey, and with me today, as always, is my partner. It's Vic,
That's
probably in
me. How are you
that
doing
corner.
today, sir?
I'm good. Before we get into it, we do want to let you know we do have a show we do every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/MillerKing_51. Please come by and join us. Join the live show as we record it. And, you can get in on the discussion. If you think if you've got some interesting points we're talking about, you can chime in. We'll interact with you as well, too. That's every 7 p.m. On Twitch. So the link is in the description.
Not every 7 p.m. on Twitch. Every Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Every Tuesday.
On Twitch.
They knew what I meant. They knew what I meant.
You're going to have people tuning in at 7 a.m. going, where are they?
Yeah, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. We will be there. Yeah. Anyhow, we are going to break down the latest episode of Stargirl. I think this is episode, which one?
Episode
9?
Chapter 8.
I was close. Chapter 8,
yes.
So, Vic, let's break it down.
All right. Well, this episode of Stargirl, as we said, is Summer School, Chapter 8. And in this episode, we are seeing the backlash of last week's episode where Yolanda is just losing her stuff because Eclipso is just in her head and she can't get past it. She was already having natural anxiety from the death of Brainwave. And then Eclipso is just ramping it up like 10 billion% more. And she's not able to handle it. And she ends up quitting the JSA. She returns her gear to Courtney in a duffel bag. She ding dong ditches and takes off. Doesn't even say a word to her. And then
I liked Mike's line was like, does what's his name?
Eclipso?
The Eclipso. He says, does Eclipso ring the doorbell?
Right.
Yeah, I think he subtly has some of the funniest lines in the show.
Yeah.
It almost brings a it's almost like the audience.
Yeah.
Sometimes has a voice in it.
He's definitely the voice of the people in this. He's us for sure. Because he's got a good take. Like he's like, I need to go and talk to her, and they're like, no, just give her time. And he's like, no, that's exactly what you shouldn't do. You need to go talk to her and like get her back in line. It's like that. There's no other way to do this but to face it head on. And as she's about to do that, that's when she gets the doorbell goes off and she finds the Wildcat gear on the front porch. Rick is still feeding Solomon Grundy, and he's come to some sort of an odd friendship with him, and they still haven't quite given us the why to the whole situation. But basically with him, he's just having a hard time adjusting to being a hero and trying to be a better kid. He's really putting in some hard work in school, and he's getting better grades. And that one teacher several episodes ago that was like, you cheated. You need to take the test again. And he takes the test again and aces it again. And she's like, oh, you really did study.
Yeah,
this is awkward.
Part of me wonders just how cliche that is, because you see that in a lot of stuff, and it's just like, do teachers really do that?
I will tell you, I can tell you firsthand experience with this. I had a teacher in high school, and we got handed an assignment to do a report on an author, and I picked Mark Twain. But we only had there's 26, 27 kids in the class, and the list of people to do your book on was 12 people. Like they're like, pick out of these 12 people, pick somebody, do a paper. So I did a paper on Mark Twain. So did another kid in my class, right? So I go down to the library, I get the book out, and there's only a certain number of books in there. So we have 3 books on Mark Twain in the library. So I get the book out, and I rush down there. I get the first book, the biggest one about Mark Twain, the thickest one. And I take it home, and I start, taking my notes, and I did my paper, and I'm bad about writing in books. And I had written notes in the book. I highlighted shit and underlined stuff in the book.
So you're actually helping the other person.
Yeah, that was the problem. So I wrote my whole thing out, right? I get it. I finished it. I handed it in. I even handed it in before this person, right? But this person was one of the, smart kids in the class and the one that the teacher liked and all this kind of stuff, right? And after I handed it in, like we got graded, and I had on my paper when it came back, see me after class. That's what was on it.
You're like,
So I
yes,
was
you
like,
really like this.
okay, but there was no grade on it. So I go up and she's like, I'm gonna need you to redo your paper. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you plagiarized this. I was like, what? She's like, this is a really good paper and I don't think you wrote it. And I'm like, what? Hold on. This is one of the few things that I've actually done in this class myself. Okay. What do you mean? And she's like, well, I read your paper. And then I read so and so's paper and it was exactly the same. I was like, maybe because he copied off of me. And she's like, I don't think that's what happened. I'm like, okay. So
you should have been like, hold on, let me go down to the library.
Oh, no,
I
no,
wrote
I did.
all in up in
I
that
did.
book.
Oh, trust me, I did. I went down, I got it, because they had a little piece of paper in the back of the book.
Yeah.
That tells you like when you signed it out and everything.
When you checked it out,
yeah. I went and got that, and I got the librarian to give me the card, and I photocopied, and I took it back to her, and I said, I took this book out first. This is my notes. You can see my handwriting in the little margins, which I got in trouble for, by the way, because now they know I did it. But I was like, this is my work. And then she was just like, blah, 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 blah. We got into it. Like, it was a huge thing. By the time it was all said and done, this teacher ended up leaving our school and going to work at another school. But
maybe I just never did well in school, so it was consistent and they never suspected a thing.
I just got mad because I did something myself and like I really put hard work into it. And she's like, that's not your work. I'm like, fuck you, lady. But yeah, it does happen. But anyway, this woman, however, this teacher was at least like apologetic about it. She's like, I'm really sorry, and then she comes to his house and she's like, hey, I just want to apologize again. He's like, you drove all the way out here to apologize again? I think we've already been through this. We're fine, I guess. And she's like, no. She's like, well, it wasn't only that. I want you to take the opportunity to look at these college papers, blah, blah. And of course, the jerk off uncle pops out and he's like, what are you doing? Drinking a beer at 4 o'clock, at 12 o'clock in the morning, in the afternoon or whatever. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, now I kind of see why you're all messed up. I'm going to go now. Happy 4th of July.
You take this. Bye-bye.
See you later. And
I did all I could.
Of course, the uncle is like, you're going to end up in jail before you ever make it to college. And he throws up his paper. And a little bit of foreshadowing, which we'll get to a little bit later on. But Rick is like distraught. He's pissed. He's like, I'm doing everything I can right. I'm trying to be a good guy. I'm trying to do better in school. And everything I do just seems to be wrong. And I'm mad. And he was like, I'm just fed up. I'm tired of this. And he got like super emotional. I actually like this episode was full of some weird emotional stuff, but they did it well. Like, I wasn't disappointed with how they pulled it off, because he was literally just standing in the woods screaming at the top of his lungs. And yeah, I've done that. Like, I've gotten mad and just like went and just tension breaker, like scream as loud as I can. And I'm like, fine.
Yeah.
Away.
Yeah, I mean, it was fine, but once Solomon showed up on screen, I stopped paying any attention to what he was saying, because I was too fixated on whether or not I liked Solomon's look here or if it looked so bad.
Yeah.
It teetered the line. There's some shots where it was really bad, then there was other shots that it wasn't so bad.
Well, when he walks up and you get that POV of him like staring down at him and like he's looking up at Grundy and you just see the shadow around him. You're like, okay, so Solomon just walked up, but like you would have heard him coming. Like that would not have been like a sneak up event. Like you would have heard him coming from a mile away, and that wouldn't have been a surprise that he was just standing there. And if they're going for that, oh, he's a silent giant. No, I don't think so.
No, he's not.
But he sits down, he starts eating the apples, and he's burping and being the pig that he is. And Rick is just like laying out his soul to Grundy and telling him how he feels. Yet we still don't understand why he's trying to befriend Grundy. They still have not like filled us in on that process for him, because Grundy was responsible for killing his parents.
Right.
He wanted to kill Grundy up until the moment Grundy got away. He wanted to hunt Grundy down to kill him, but then all of a sudden he's just like, maybe it wasn't.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And this is probably one of those things that we talk about where it's like, we want to know and then we'll never hear anything because that's not important. It's supposed to focus on that. Don't worry about it.
So my mindset says, and the thing that that like I'm going with is this. When he released Grundy from that pen they had him in because he was trapped in there and they kept him like a caged animal. I feel like he realizes that like Grundy was not someone who was doing anything on his own accord. They had him penned up, they opened the door and they pointed him in the direction of his parents. And Grundy just went. So I like in my head, maybe he's thinking like it's not actually Grundy's fault. He's like I am. Like he's just a ball of anger that they pointed in his parents' direction and they slapped him on the ass and he ran through his parents.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what he's thinking because he kind of feels like he's the same kind of monster inside. Like he feels like he's a monster also. And that's kind of plays into at the end of this when we figure out that Eclipso is messing with him through this at this point, and he gets a message that they're going to hunt this bear, and he runs back in the woods to try to save Grundy from the hunters, which he knows damn well those hunters are not going to be able to kill Grundy. I don't know why he's freaking out, but he goes
I think he was more trying to stop Grundy from killing them.
Yeah, that would make sense. But then they're like, oh yeah, there's been a little girl that's been missing for 4 days and blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, if there's been a girl missing for 4 days in that town, don't you think you would have known about it before that guy told you?
Yeah, but I think here's my theory though. I think that not only those hunters that he came across, but the radio airplay was all fake. None of it was there.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why I also believe that is because when he got in the car, that first truck was not there. When he first sat down and he was just sitting there and he turns on the radio and he starts listening to the radio, then he starts talking about how they're going on this bear hunt. When he looks back up, that first truck was in front of him. And then when we see the second truck drive up and you see them go into the woods and he heads out in the other direction. I think that was kind of the indication that it was a dream at that point. Just like she had, just like Beth had that same kind of indication that something was going on. But when he goes out in the woods and then those guys are like, oh yeah, she's been missing for 4 days. And like that dude literally talked about this bear, like eating people's food and going to people's houses. Don't you think he would have been like, and there's a 4-year-old girl, a 10-year-old girl missing that the bear could have eaten or something. But then he finds out from those two guys, yeah, there's a girl that's been missing for 4 days and whatever's out here probably took her. And then he just happens across Grundy, who's standing over the body in the water with blood on his hands.
Who's not really there.
And well, not only that, but he's got blood on his hands. The girl is in the water. There's no blood on her anywhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
like,
I noticed
there's little inconsistencies about it. And then he's like Grundy, why would you do that? You're a monster. And then Grundy like runs off and he pursues him. And I'm like, okay. But meanwhile, Courtney and
Stripes show up, but they see the girl too,
right?
So
because they're all in his. They're all.
I guess it's in that
zone.
Yeah, it's in that zone.
Yeah,
invisible zone.
So like the biggest thing about it is though, if you also notice, Courtney and Stripe never see or hear the hunters anywhere. When they pull up, there's no trucks out there. Because they showed them pull up and those trucks are not there. I'm like, all right, this is all a big hallucination that Eclipso is doing. And I don't know why they haven't figured it out. I don't know why Rick didn't go, Eclipso's behind this after he really started like figuring out that something is wrong. But he runs up there and he catches Grundy in at his farm, no less. He finds Grundy there and he leg tackles Grundy and he just starts beating the living crap out of him. And I was like, Grundy's not fighting back. And then when Stripe runs up, he's like, you don't know what you're doing. That's not Grundy. And I was like, oh, he just beat the crap out of his uncle.
Yeah. Right before he even said, that's not your uncle, I figured it out.
Yeah.
I figured out that it was, or that I figured it out it was his uncle and it wasn't Grundy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't too surprised by that. I was like, oh man, this is going to end badly.
So when the illusion wears off, Rick is standing there and he's like, he realizes like, okay, Grundy's not the monster. I'm the monster, which is what he was alluding to earlier in this whole thing. And he takes his hourglass and he smashes it, which essentially is supposed to make him lose his powers, even though I know, and I've told you, he already has that ability kind of in him. I think that he just kind of convinces himself that the hourglass is what gives it to him, but he's been genetically altered by his parents, I think. So he breaks that, and they check
So
on his
now we're
uncle,
down
and
two.
he's messed up. Yeah, now we're down to two. His uncle is messed up, and they call the ambulance. And by the end of the episode, he ends up in a squad car. So his uncle's prediction came true. A little foreshadowing there that he would end up in jail before he went to college, and that's exactly what's happening. So that's Rick, and then of course we have Beth.
Then we've got Goggles.
Yeah, we got Beth, the new Doctor Midnight, as she has proclaimed herself. Dude, this part of the episode pissed me off the entire time.
Yeah,
and I know that's what it was meant to do. Like, I get it. I get that it was meant to make me mad. Literally made to make me mad.
yeah.
And I was still like, it angered me the way that they were doing it. But basically, Beth is still dealing with her demons of her parents getting a divorce. Plus, she's still also dealing with the fact that she doesn't really feel like she's contributing to the JSA as much as she should be, as much as everybody else does, because she doesn't have a physical, ability or capabilities when it comes to fighting or something like that. But so she's sitting there, she's trying to hack the goggles, is basically what she's trying to do. And for some reason those goggles have a USB port on them. I still haven't figured that one out yet. But
I didn't even notice
yeah,
that.
she's had them plugged into her computer a couple times. So I was like, why do you have a USB port on this thing? But
I didn't notice that. I thought they were just laying there next to her.
Yeah, no.
And I gotta say,
and even if
some
that's
of
the
the
case, she
sounds,
Wi-Fi'd into them.
well, some of the sounds that were coming out of that MacBook are not from a MacBook, so I'm not real sure where they pulled those sound effects from. Just saying.
So she's doing her thing, and her parents walk in, and as soon as her parents walked in with that food, I was like, oh boy. But she finished talking to Dr. Midnight, and she's like, where are you? And he's like, I'm in the shadow realm. And then he got cut off. He's like, they're coming. So there's going to be more to that, obviously. But I don't know if you noticed, but as she was sitting there right after he said that, Eclipso popped up on the screen of her laptop. Did you see that?
Yes, I noticed that.
Okay, so he pops up on the screen of the laptop, and I'm like, okay, so at this point, nothing that happens with her.
He popped up like Ed Boon in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, it's Toasty.
All you needed was the Toasty sound effect. You might as well throw that in there too.
So he pops in, and then he's gone for, like in a split second, and then the parents walk in. And when the parents walk in, and they're like, we need to. I figured this is a good time for us to talk. And then they have food, which is what she always does. She always brings them food. Like whenever she goes to talk to them and tries to interact with them, she always like made them a meal. So the mom's like, oh yeah, I made, before I was a doctor, I was the queen of Rubens, blah, blah, blah. And they go through this whole sappy thing about the mom and the dad. And then they're like, yeah, well, we put our lives on hold, and then we had you. And then basically because of you, we grew apart. And I was like, and this is where Eclipso was getting in.
I saw where that was going. And I'm like, wait a minute. If this is really her parents, wow, that is something to throw at her.
I was just like, damn, dude. And then I was like, oh yeah, Eclipso showed up like 2 seconds
I was
ago.
Beginning to think it wasn't them though at this point.
Yeah, so and she notices the stereotypical horror trope of maggots in the food situation pops out. And I was like, man, the one thing that I can say about this episode is they went kind of like dark, actually light horror tropey with it, but it worked. Like hers worked really well, I thought.
Yeah, I thought so too. To me, it seemed like a Halloween episode.
Yeah.
That was made for TV for a TV show like this or like Buffy, and I thought it worked well. At least her segments. The rest of the show was totally separate, but with this, yes, for sure.
Well, when she walks into, she ends up going to Courtney's house after the whole mom and dad thing. She runs off. She ends up going to Courtney's house, and she's like, "Courtney, are you home? Is anybody home?" And nobody's home. It's like, but you just walked into somebody's house and they're not home. Why are you walking into somebody's house? That's just rude.
I thought the same thing.
And I was like, okay. So I as soon as that happened, and I was like, okay, she's still asleep. She's dreaming. Like she's either passed out or something's happened and he's got control of her. And she's like, is anybody here? And then Bruce shows up. She's like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Bruce. And she's like, Bruce? I was like, that's what Corey said too. He sounded just like you last week. Like, hold on, that his name's Bruce? I'm like, yes, his name's Bruce. And he's like, I know who you are, blah, Beth, whatever, and yada, yada, yada. And he's like, I know all about you, and you're a thief. And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, everyone else, Courtney gave everyone else their stuff. You stole these. You're a thief. He's like, but that's typical of you people. I'm like, oh, hell no, he did not just say you people.
Well,
before, like out loud, I was like, you people.
Well, before he said that line, I was like, yeah, she did steal it. I said that like in the first season.
She did.
I'm like, she didn't earn those, but she just stole them.
Yeah, she did.
So he's not wrong in that aspect. Now, the later part of it, I'm, whoa, wait a minute. What are we doing here?
That you people mess. I was just like, all right, y'all need to stop now. And then he's like, well, if you want him back, you'll have to come get them. I'm like, oh God, this creepy kid.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, don't follow the creepy kid into the house, just leave. But nope, she chases him upstairs. He takes her on that haunted hayride situation where it's like, there's a noise in the closet. And she's like, I know you're in the closet, come out. I was like, damn, she's actually kind of smart. She ain't going for the closet. Like most people like hear a noise in the closet, they just walk over and open it and whatever just jumps out at them. But she was just like, I'm not going in the closet. Like, I know you're in there, so I ain't going.
Yeah.
And then she ends up opening it and there's nothing in there. And he pops out and, he starts taunting her some more. And then he starts talking about her inability to assist the team and talking about how she's not athletic. And she's like, oh, I thought you people were athletic. And he's like, that's another stereotype wrong. I'm like, I'm really getting tired of this kid.
When she said that's the R word, which we're on YouTube, I'm not going to say it. I was like, technically he could have been talking about superheroes. Because when you think of it, I'm totally being serious. Because if you look at all superheroes, most of them are fast and they're all strong.
Let's talk about context.
But
the context in which he had been saying the entire time, his statements, that's not what he meant.
Yeah.
Because he literally said that's another stereotype broken. So...
Yeah, I know. I totally understand that. But I was like, yeah, if you kind of look at it. But he did have the earlier comment, which kind of makes it lean towards the other direction.
Yeah, so I was like, you guys say that, you people think one more time. One more. And they stopped. They stopped just before it. They only really put two of them out there. So I'm still not letting it slide. But the good part about it is once she was like, I know who you are, you're Eclipso. And he was like, oh. And she's like, I know you're here. And he pops out of the shadows. And I was like, okay. Then he grabs her and he starts trying to go in on her again. And she's like, I'm not afraid of you. Like, I don't care what you say. I don't care about your little R-word craziness. I'm happy to be me. I'm glad to be in my skin. And back off, buddy. And that was the end of that. So now what we see from this is that even though she's not physically like the most physical person, she's not the fighter, she's figured out how to defeat Eclipso. Like, she now knows what his weakness is, and that's the fact that if you're not afraid of him, he can't affect you the way that he has everybody else. And their fear is a constant is a constant trope. Like, their fear and their anxiety about him is something that keeps him in their mind, which allows him to enter.
But that doesn't explain the teacher from like 2 weeks ago who was possessed by him. He didn't even know who the hell he was.
He wasn't possessed by... Well, he's able to mind control people. That was mind control. That wasn't like... He hadn't... Like, he put a bunch of crap in that dude's mind and made him do a bunch of stuff, but it wasn't a matter of, like, him needing him to be fearful of him. It was just him taking control of him to manipulate everybody else. Like, it wasn't about that teacher. It was about painting those paintings and giving clues to the JSA saying, I'm here, I've got control, you're gonna have to deal with me. That's what that was about. It wasn't about the teacher. It was about him using him as a puppet to get his message out there to the JSA. So, and that's what he did with everybody, because once he took someone over, he forced them into doing something that, that was kind of against their nature. And then when they were confronted with it, they were so afraid that he was able to feed off of their fear, and then he would destroy them. So it's all part of his manipulation. But she's like, I'm not afraid of you. Like, I don't care. And then like this electric bolt just goes off and he throws her away from him. And so we're gonna see that she's gonna teach the rest of the JSA. She's gonna make her worth shown by helping the rest of the JSA get past all of this ridiculousness, because she's already broken the cycle. She's not afraid of him and she understands what he's doing now. So with that said, I think it's a good way for them to kind of give her a purpose outside, because we've talked about the fact that she's not the physical one. Like, she's literally the brains of the operation. She's the tech guy. She doesn't do a whole lot, but now this is going to give her the ability to do more and be involved and actually have a point of importance to the group. However, my other thing is Mike needs to go down in the basement and grab that Wildcat outfit and put it on.
You think he'll be the next Wildcat then?
No, I don't, but he needs to do it. That was the other thing that he did. He had her walk into the room with the rest of the old JSA, and he's like, one of these things is not like the other. And I was like, don't you say it.
Yeah.
You little
Well, he said you're not the right age or gender or race or skin tone, I think, or something like that.
I don't know, but all I know is I was literally getting madder and madder every time he did it. Which it was done to elicit a response, and it did.
And also think of this too. Don't these two factions go way back years?
What do you mean?
Like back when there was segregation. So it's possible that Eclipso is that old. That
Eclipso is definitely that old and probably is like steeped in that, but he's literally just doing it because he knows it can. He figures he can get to her. But I mean, as far as he's concerned, he wasn't involved with the JSA and all of them, so he doesn't know who was actually involved. I mean, if you really want to get into it, there are black superheroes back in that time frame. So like, it's not like it's a outside of the realm of possibility type of situation. So, but no, this episode was very good in my opinion. I think they did a very good job of giving it kind of a horror-esque feel, even more of a horror feel to it. And it put everybody in a really bad position at this point. And also we found out that Solomon Grundy's been living at Rick's farm the entire time.
Yeah, well, was he though?
Or was he just... I think he was. I think he's been hanging out there the whole time.
I'm not sure he has. I think he was just hiding there, and he like heard everything going on and came up to see what was going on.
Maybe.
I'm not so sure about that. I will say
this.
Yeah.
Lou Ferrigno.
We also don't know the whereabouts of Green Lantern once again.
Yes.
So we're down to 3 people in the Justice League or Justice Society. So.
Well, not really.
Not saying much.
That's 2. We're down to 2.
You got Stargirl, you got Goggles, and you got Green Lantern, who will eventually show back up.
She's not officially part of the JSA, though. She didn't join the team.
No, but you're right. But she's got to come back. There's no reason you'd have 2 or 3 episodes at the beginning of the season.
Absolutely.
To rebring that to bring that back up from season 1.
There's a total of 13 episodes, and we're at number 8. So we have a few episodes for things to get to it. The last bit of the episode, while Grundy watches Rick get taken off in the police car and the ambulance drives by, the last scene is Barbara and Mike at the house, and they're like, I don't know what we're gonna do. This is scary, but we'll get through it together as a family. Mike calls Barb mom out of nowhere.
Oh.
And then we get a receding shot out the window, and as it backs out, you start seeing icicles forming around the house. And they had made mention of the fact that it was extremely cold for the 4th of July. Everyone's in jackets, everyone was cold, and so either the grandparents are ready to like become super bad guys, or the kid is turning to the dark side, one or the other.
I don't think it's the kid. I would think the parents first, but we also have to keep in mind that this is a DC property and nobody stays dead. So I'm going to put my money on Icicle.
You think he came back?
Yep. I think that even though even though he shattered, he was in ice form, and it ended up melting, and he ended up somehow was able to form or take all that water and go like down into a drain or something, and then reform himself there, and he's been hiding out underneath this
So
whole time.
you're saying he's the Terminator?
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. So on that note, we do want to thank you for watching, and please be sure to hit the subscribe button and give us a thumbs up and leave us any comments if you agree or disagree with what we said. So on behalf of Vic,
That's me.
I'm Corey. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.
See ya.